When I think of Skopje, I really think of resilience. I think it's a city that has survived and keeps on surviving despite all and many odds. I think it's an inspiring city. It's a complex system of narratives and desires and particularities of its citizens. It's a city that has taken quite a few blows over the history. It has come up again on its own terms. So for me, yeah, it's a city of resilience.
And has a very rooted, very rich history, which unfortunately it's not visible on a first glance. But if you have an opportunity to go deeper into the city and meet local people and try to understand through their stories the history of the city, you will realize that there is a mixture of cultures and ethnicities that lives here, influences from east and west, and has its own unique character. What Acropole means to Athens, this is what the Museum of Contemporary Art means to Skopje. Not because it's also positioned on the hill and you can see 360 degrees of the city, but also because of its importance, because the city completely changed after the earthquake and how it was developed. I don't remember that time because I was not born in 1963, but the way, the modernization of the city that happens, it really changed the character of the city. And this is how Skopje became my first city to be in love with.
Are we gonna cry now? I hope we're not gonna cry.
I don't know. It's really emotional moment.
What is the next question?
Dusan Perchinkov and Anita Svetieva, they're really representing unique voices. The works that we selected, they've been created in the beginning of their careers. What is also interesting about Perchinkov, he did his first solo exhibition with paintings in the frame of the Museum of Contemporary Art without a building, only existing as an institution and having some temporary space. Yeah. And then he stopped doing paintings and he moved into graphic prints. For me, this is also fascinating, how you can get enough with one medium, express yourself to the maximum, that it's enough to transfer your language into another medium. Also, what is very impressive in his paintings, on a first glance, they look very organized and graphic and minimal, but they are loaded with emotions. When you read the titles of the paintings, there is some kind of personal experience that leads to this organization of a painting. An experience, it's related to having a contact with the landscape, with the sea, with the coast and the sea, or with the island that is blooming, or with the suburban area which is slowly transforming because the city is growing and the landscape is changing. The water is also an important element in his paintings, directly and indirectly, as in the way how Svetieva is creating her sculptures using just the basic, a ground and a water, mixing them together to create in a very spontaneous way, in a very also traditionally loaded way, how the women in our context would make the form of the bread or would make a form of a dish in a sort of traditional technique like terracotta, creating something which is beyond goddess and human. The installation that we are seeing here, it's meant for figures who are emerging or going into the water. And for us, it's also important that the audience, when they are looking at the installation, have a feeling that there is a landscape, like hills that are going up and down, transforming or growing like plants, you have something on a background which is a landscape that is going into the horizon. You have a pond with figures who are going deep into the water, ready to just entering the water and ready to how did you
to
explain?
Emerge.
To
Yeah.
emerge, and then to everybody goes to their own way.
Yeah.
And there is the messenger who announced the beauty of the nature.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this all of the works, the selected works, and how they actually touch you as a viewer, as the audience, was very important. Like it's sometimes like it is possible to explain, and sometimes it's just impossible. You know, it's important to feel certain emotion out of the works. And for us, like everything had this like hypnotic quality. You know, that sometimes we observe a landscape and we try to see something within the landscape that it's a point of reference, and this is what we hoped our installation will comprise of, elements of emotional reference, you know, if I may say. So this continuum, this flow, this everything that, you know, exists within a symbiosis with the natural, with the emotional, with the, you know,
Historical,
with the
primordial,
historical, exactly.
archaeological.
I think we just wanted everything to flow. So, and therefore the title,
Yeah.
All Things Flowing. Sabina Sobolovic, she explained it very well, that in this very moment of, you know, like using a quote from Rilke's poem, in this very moment where we really need to be conscious of, you know, of solidarity and not losing this within ourselves on a personal level, and then, you know, influencing the social and political dimension of solidarity further. I think it's very important. So for us, I mean, for me personally, and in our discussion, you know, this aspect of not containing the emotion, let the emotion actually come out, and within that speak some truth, say something of relevance, elevate the others, like, and yourself, you know, elevate the community. Think of exhibitions and think of these installations and this artwork as more of a community building process, you know, like, be generous.
And also this collection, it based on solidarity, it's an emotional, the way how artists responded to certain tragedy and rebuild. And it's based on emotional response to something. And that's why it's unique in its own way. It's not institutionally based, what it should be important to have your own, in your own collection. But how
like somehow we as artists can sometimes collectively, you know, build a collection with the meaning that it's not necessarily art historical to start with, that it's not about the specific economic value of certain pieces.
Period, or phase, or
exactly.
something that should be presented in a certain collection, but what you as an artist feel that it's good enough, I don't know, part of yourself that can be given to a city, to a collection, to a new museum, that it's there somewhere.
Yeah, and just
in the
to
world.
also kind of have a belief in the future. I think everybody who contributed then and who still contributes, let's not forget, there's been in the last 5 years, and I'm so you know, extremely proud of our generation of artists who have been showing in the Museum of Contemporary Art in the last 5 years. Since there is a new director and there is a invigorating team of curators, that there's been a new donations, and that this is alive, and this is very much, you know, like compliment to our collective consciousness of our generation, that, you know, there is something that we still believe and we want to rebuild, you know, called solidarity and called dialogue. So I think it's this show now, I think it's a huge testament to to what we, expect of each other, to uplift each other, but also, not forget that everything we do and everything we say and the history we read, but we also, the way we expect the history to have some say in the present and the future, that it all counts and it all can take a shape. And in this amazing, landscape of meaningful artifacts, there is a story that is yet to be told. It's a many possibility of entry points for future narratives. So I don't know. It's all things flowing in that way as well.
In this particular situation, when I started working on a alphabet, also inspired by the theory of open form from Oscar and Zofia Hansen, and also inspired by Joseph Alberts and his typography that he developed in the 30s, which is today known as archetype Alberts. They were based on basic geometric forms, and this is how I started developing my typography. But because my interest is also the voices which were marginalized, especially the history of women in my own context, I decided to erase the vertical and the horizontal lines in the letters, which means the hierarchies, and to create visually and metaphorically a space for all those voices, all those narratives which stayed hidden or unknown. So they would just have a space in this process of rewriting a new narrative. For this particular mural, which I designed specifically for this installation, and we tried for the first time with the team who helped us to build the installation. It's the title of our work, but a little bit extended. And I played with the letters, trying to overlap one and another to create some kind of a visual deepness into the space, like when you're creating a painting, for example. The color that I selected, they comes from the paintings of Perchinkov, because it was important for me to have these rooty, natural tones, and to see how they can create their own visual overlapping and transformation when they are applied on the wall.
Which is also, I think, very important, is that it does exist also as a functioning font. And what is beautiful is that you could write with this, and it could also test our ability to write without the horizontals and the verticals, without this binary, the necessity of these binary positions, and see what else happens. And I think that's really beautiful. So
thank you.
What I did here, I observed a lot of the Hansen architectural sketches for the proposal for Skopje that was not, elaborated, because he wasn't accepted to go further in the competition in the 60s. And then out of the aerial views, I developed new geometric shapes. So just to see how the response to geometry can be also refreshed in a way, that we can see some forms that we're not, maybe we have not seen, or we have not been, visually aware of. Therefore, the very broken triangles and rectangular shapes. In this case, there is no circular form, but we added the kinetic moment of raising and lowering the central three positions in the sculpture, so that they are also in a little reference to Felix Gonzalez Torres. They all started at one point all together in synchronicity, and they all then slowly go in their own, somehow following their own mind as to how time skips over time, how ideas change over time, how we cannot ideally follow each other, and how every idea gets tested over time. So then we are done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Woo! A little bit of drama, a little bit of theory, a little.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.